Hi, my name's Geoff Meads from Tennessee Twin, and welcome to part 3 of my tips for better Facebook Live broadcasts. Yes, welcome back. This is part 3 already, would you believe? I hope you're all being safe and keeping well, enjoying some great music online. So I've had a few questions over the last couple of days sent to me through private message, and we're going to be answering those over the next couple of days. But one particular friend, Matt, actually messaged me this morning just asking to cover a subject related to what we spoke about yesterday, which was microphones. He was asking if there were any good microphones that plug in to Android phones in the same way as the Shure MV58 that we looked at yesterday plugs into iPhones. Sadly, it seems there's quite a few less microphones for Android phones, but I did find one by Rode, so by all means go and have a look at that online. The other thing that we should mention, I suppose, at this time is you'll see a lot of the microphones that you can buy for phones that are plugged in that we didn't talk about yesterday are what we call lavalier microphones. And those are the kind of things that kind of clip onto your shirt. You'll have seen newsreaders and people like that quite often have them, particularly interviewees. And they are great for doing interviews. I've seen them, for example, that plug into the bottom of the phone and have one for the person answering the questions and one for the person being interviewed. While they're great for that, they're not really much help, unfortunately, for singing and for recording instruments. So we kind of left that out yesterday, but I thought we'd just mention it today because, you might come across them online and consider buying them. If you're going to be interviewing, they're great, but for your Facebook Live broadcast, probably not going to help you very much. So, without further ado, let's move on and talk about today's subject. Should I use my smartphone for my broadcast, or should I use my laptop? Okay, so this is a question which you may well have thought of when approaching a Facebook Live broadcast. Quite often, of course, we've got our smartphone right in front of us and we tend to just dive into that and use that anyway. But when you think about it, you can also, of course, do that from your laptop or maybe even, dare I say, from a desktop computer. I don't know if any of you still got those anymore, but most of us, of course, run on laptops. So I thought we'd start by just have a look at those two today and see what kind of aspects of using those might affect our choice. So I'm going to start off with a smartphone. Why not? We've all got them, and that's probably even what you're watching this YouTube video on. Well, the first benefit of having of using a smartphone, of course, you have it. It's right there. You're very used to it. You know your way around it, and you probably use apps like Facebook all of the time. So just going in and pressing that live button and off you go. It's hardly difficult. And I have to say, nowadays, particularly on a more modern phone of the last 2 or 3 years or 4 years, the cameras on them are exceptional. They do, of course, perform better like all cameras if you've got plenty of light, and that's something maybe we'll approach and talk about in another episode. But the cameras on those phones are really, really good. So that's one definite plus point for smartphones. However, as we talked about yesterday and a bit the day before, the sound on them is pretty terrible. They're really only designed, the microphones in the smartphone, for picking up your voice when you're on the phone call. And so for a music performance, they're not going to show you at your best. Now, we talked yesterday about some of the options for clipping in and adding microphones to your smartphone, either straight clip in or via an interface. So we can certainly do that, but those options are fairly limited. So we have to look carefully and choose carefully about which one we're going to do. The next thing to talk about, and this is going to be the subject of tomorrow's talk actually, in more detail, is that with a phone you are limited to connecting to the internet either via Wi-Fi or of course via something like 4G. Now we try and avoid 4G just because we're probably further away from the mast and we just don't know what speed we're going to get. Wi-Fi can be, of course, your friend. It's very, very useful, but it's nowhere near as good as other options like Ethernet cables, which, again, we'll talk about tomorrow. So with your phone, of course, you'll probably notice there's no Ethernet socket on the bottom of that thing, so you are going to be limited to Wi-Fi connections. Now, the last thing about smartphones, and this kind of comes up the more of these broadcasts that are going on at the moment, the more you watch, the more it becomes obvious this is the case, and that is that if you have a smartphone and you're playing your instrument and singing along, when it comes to a little bit of a break, when you're having a bit of a chat, it's actually really difficult to then read the comments that are going up and down the screen. Phones obviously have got a lot bigger in the last few years, but unless you have super duper bionic eyesight, you're probably going to struggle. And I've seen quite a few people already sort of going like this, trying to read out the comments on their videos, and that's a real shame. But that's just the way of the phone. Of course, if you're using an iPad to do the job, or another tablet, well, it might be a lot easier to read those things, but still you're limited in screen size. So what about laptops? Well, first of all, again, you probably have one. Maybe a PC, maybe a Mac, it really doesn't matter. You probably find these days, if it's relatively recent, you have a camera built into your laptop too for doing things like Skype calls and Zoom and all of those kinds of things. The other beauty about a laptop though is you can fairly easily add an external webcam, and webcams can be had for very reasonable money and improve the picture quality no end from probably at least from the one that you've got built into the laptop. Now, a laptop's microphone is again a bit rubbish. It's built for maybe you talking down a Skype call or something like that, but it's not there for recording the detail of a musical performance, that's for sure. So adding an external mic is probably high on your list of priorities. But that said, with a laptop, of course, you have things like USB and Thunderbolt and USB-C type connections where you can easily add some really good, just professional level audio interfaces, if you like, and then the world's your oyster in terms of what microphones you want to connect to that. Now, your Wi-Fi is probably going to be connected via Wi-Fi. Your laptop rather is probably going to be connected via Wi-Fi, but a lot of them you will have the Ethernet socket on the side as well. Now that's going to be a much better and more reliable connection to the internet, and we'll talk more about that, as I say, tomorrow. Again, another advantage of a laptop is that it's a bigger screen. So if you've got it fairly close to you in order for the camera to pick you up playing your instrument, then chances are you stand a little bit better chance of then reading the comments that are going by on the screen. So that's really helpful. To make things even better, if you're using an external webcam and microphone, then you can bring the laptop maybe over to one side to you so you can read those comments really easily, or failing that, a lot of laptops, of course, have got a connection for an external monitor, and if you have a spare monitor kicking about, which some of us do, then you can connect that up more closely to you, and you can duplicate the screen and keep an eye on all those comments, and of course mention those people in your in what you say on the broadcast, and that really helps to connect people. On that particular note, I want to say a bit of a congratulations to Lauren Jane. Watched some of her live broadcast earlier, and she managed to get great, really lovely, clear audio on her live Facebook live broadcast. So well done for that. And don't know how you do it. Perhaps, Lauren, you can message us and let us know, and we'll share that with everybody here, whether it was just a phone or something a bit more interesting. So that's pretty much it for today. Summing up, well, your smartphone is going to be the easiest, of course, because it's most readily available. We all have them, dead easy. Your laptop, well, maybe not quite so easy, but does give us a lot more options. Easier to read, more chances of adding better cameras in terms of webcams and audio devices like audio interfaces and microphones. So it's something to think about. Maybe try a test. We talked about testing yesterday. Maybe try a test with a tame friend on a spare Facebook page just as a test broadcast and see which one works best for you. Meanwhile, tomorrow we're going to tackle the thorny subject of Wi-Fi and how to get the best internet connection while you're doing your broadcast, which will give you the best quality overall. So meanwhile, enjoy doing your Facebook Lives, enjoy your music, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye for now.